Hey everybody, George Moorhead, Bentley Properties, and today we're going to talk a little bit about what every seller and buyer should know about comps. Comps being comparable properties for a home. So again, my name is George Moorhead with Bentley Properties. We've sold over 2,000 residential and commercial properties, and so we'll be able to take you through some of the metrics, some of the things that we have learned over the years about comparable properties and the perception of an appraisal versus market value versus sentimental equity. All right, so with that, let's talk a little bit about what makes up a comparable property. Oh, you know what? I got to go back. There were a few questions that came out, 3 to be exact. All right, let's see here. Contractor vetting. I was asked about contractor vetting, and hey, where do we go? Where do we go and see? Are they really licensed, and do they have any filed complaints? And so first of all, you want to go to the Secretary of State. You can go in and see what the status is of their business. Okay, is it active? Is it inactive? Is it delinquent? Things like that. And are they real? Okay. The next site you can go to is Labor and Industries. Okay, and you just type in Labor and Industries. Boop, it just pops right up. And you can go in, you can search a contractor, you can file a complaint, you can see what complaints they have. Do they have any claims against their bond? Things like that. You'll be able to get some really good information on that. Again, so last week I gave you a bad email address on the old whiteboard here, but we corrected it on the website. So it's bentleycontractors.com, BENTLEY, and then contractors with an S.com, and that will give you some vetted contractors. Now, we're continuing to add to them. As you know, I build homes as what I call a hobby. And so we have to go back through and validate insurance and make sure that their bonding is all up to date and that we're as a co-insured. So as we vet those back through again on vendors that we work with, you will see more and more of those pop up. All right. If there's one in particular that you want, let me know. We had, somebody said, hey, I'm looking for carpet and or kind of a manufactured floor, where do I go? And I said, well, actually, you could go down to Contractor Furnishing Smart, and if you go to the one in Redmond, you can actually talk to a guy that says his name is George Moorhead. Not me, but a different George Moorhead, spelled the same way. I call him my older brother. Anyway, go down there, tell him that I referred you to him, and you get our pricing and whatnot. So if you need countertops, furnishing, hard surfaces, carpet, tile, things like that, great place to get it. You can get it at an absolutely fabulous price. And Skip, if you're looking at just kicking in carpet, if you buy it there, need an installer, reach out to Skip. Skip is on our site. He is a great installer for carpet and whatnot. So that'll give you a little bit of insight. Let's see here. They had schedule your work. Yes, I do have a calendar. If you would like a calendar of how to schedule work in certain orders, okay, as an example, you start with your plumbing, then your heating, then your electrical, and then you continue down that path. If you want a schedule, I'll send it to you. I can ask Marie to go ahead and post a simple schedule. If you're just doing a remodel, if you're going to build a house, that's a much longer schedule with timelines. Let me know. We'll just go ahead and we'll send that off to you. Simple enough. When if I remember, I'll have Marie post it for you so that you'll have it handy for you. One of our clients, he said, hey, I want to do a tax appeal. And that is this time of year. So if you're going to file an appeal on your taxes, now's they have a short window for an appeal process. And by going through this, you do have to provide comparable properties. You do need to go through and justify why you feel that the assessor might be a little high. Okay. Now, understand that that's temporary. It's not permanent. So the next year, there is a high probability that you're going to have a new assessment, and so you may need to appeal again, depending on how accurate you feel that they are. Now, just because you appeal, there are no guarantees. You need to go to the assessor's site on whichever county that you're in they actually have an appeal form, and then you need to complete that, and then of course you'll be in contact and they'll tell you their results. All right. Okay, so let's get on with this. So, and including in the benefit of a tax appeal, right? This will be helpful. All right. Comparable properties. One of the key things that we look at is size. Okay. Then age. We have style. All right. Then we'll have location, lot. How big is the lot? What is its orientation? Is it a hill? Is it flat? Is it, is it on water? Things like that. And of course, a view plays into this also. So you need to keep in mind all of these different aspects, plus how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms. Okay, some people say, hey, you know what, George? I've been looking at homes, and those are $350 a square foot, and I don't think this value of this home is right at $350 a square foot. And I'll say, okay, what size of home are you comparing that to? And I'll say, well, what do you mean? Well, you can't compare $350 a square foot to a 1,000 square foot house versus a 3,000 square foot house. That's inconsistent, and you have to understand that using just the square foot methodology, it really is only going to count if you're within 3 to 5% of the size. Okay, otherwise that number is skewed. Okay, and when you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, that doesn't work. And some people say, well, what do you mean? Well, take a look at the sold comparable properties for a 1,000 square foot Rambler versus a 4,000 square foot home. You'll see that the cost per square foot over on the 4,000 square foot home is going to be less significantly than a 1,000 square foot Rambler. It just goes without saying. So be very careful about just using that as a, hey, here's my point of reference, because it's not accurate. All right. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about appraisals versus market value. All right, so an appraisal that is requested by a bank, which is a licensed appraiser who has gone through the education, gone through their journeymanship, right? Working underneath another appraiser before they get licensed. Okay, the only people that can do appraisals for banks, okay, which is a true technical term. Real estate brokers, they provide what's called a broker price opinion or a comparative market analysis, or a CMA or a BPO. All right. There is a stipulation that we always have to say is that this is not an appraisal. Okay. We have not been certified as an appraiser to provide you that information. That is one of the key distinctions with an appraiser versus a real estate agent. Now, appraisal versus market value. Market value is what a buyer and a seller agree to in price, or what a buyer is willing to purchase a home that is what we call a arm's length transaction. Okay, that means that the buyer and the seller don't know each other. Okay, and they say, yes, two individuals come together and say, yes, here's the value of your home. Okay, now an appraiser does not look at that. Now then we'll take a look at the price. Okay, however, what they have to use are comparable properties, and they have to take all of this information based on sold comparable properties. They can look at trend with some pending sales, right, or sometimes some active, but really pending sales, because at least they have a mutual accepted offer, right? But primarily they look at solds. Okay, and the solds then give a story as to value, and is it reasonable that the home is at this value that the bank is saying, hey, they want to buy this house for $1 million. Is it reasonable that this home is worth this? And so then the appraiser says, can we justify that value? Okay, but that is not market value, because sometimes the appraisal comes in low or lower. Okay, and sometimes that happens in an upward trending market where we had the crazy market where we were seeing double-digit appreciation every single year. Okay, and it is hard because it's a lag, right? It takes a little bit for the comparable properties to start to catch up to those values, and so that makes it extremely difficult when a low appraisal comes in. Buyers and sellers like, hey, look, we agreed, that's the value, but that's not what the bank looks at it as, and so that's an important distinction to understand. And so appraisers aren't out there to kill any transaction at all, okay? But their job is to give the bank a neutral third party, very tangible value of where they feel that the value of that home is. All right. Okay. Now, some people say, hey, George, what about my Zestimate? Or what about Redfin's value? Okay, so first of all, I don't knock any of these guys, okay? There's a lot of online algorithms. An algorithm is just a computer program, right? Because they're not looking at your house. They just look at what we call the rear view mirror, and depending on what the market is doing tells you how accurate that is. So you might say, well, how accurate is it? All right, so a Zestimate used to be only accurate. They used to get it right about 51% of the time. I think the lowest I ever saw in their disclosure was about 48% of the time to get it 50% right. They'll be within 95 or 96% of the value with, what was it? They'll get it 95, 96% of the time correct within 20% of the value. Okay, well, that's unrealistic, right? If you got $1 million house, that's a $200,000 swing, and that's just crazy, right? So you have to understand that these companies are looking in the rearview mirror. So if we look at our Zestimate, right? Let's see if I get a little bit deeper color there. Today, because our market has been flat for about the last year, just shy of 18 months, because, you know, it's not doing this, or it's not doing this, or it's not doing this, right? It's been relatively flat. It's like, you know, if you've ever been in Eastern Washington, you go over the hills, right? And if you look, all you can see are the peaks, right? But you can't really see the valleys because, you know, they're peaks. But you can see a flat road for miles and miles and miles. Okay, the flatter that road is, the easier it is for these online algorithms to predict value, okay? So when they look at value, so right now, as of today, the Zestimate says that they are 78% of the time to be correct within 5% of a sold property. Okay, well, that's better than half the time, right? Okay, many of these sites will actually have, you know, hey, we're within 1.6 or 2.5 or 5% of a sold property, or an on-market property. And I'm like, well, you're kidding, right? That's not too difficult, all right? But it's the, I'm not on the market. And so Redfin, as of today, they said that they will actually be within, so we'll put the big R here. I actually wrote it down for myself. So it's 6.09%, okay? And they will be accurate 50% of the time, okay? What does this say? It doesn't say that they're bad, you know, that they're bad values. It just says that, hey, man, looking in the rearview mirror, here's what we figure it is. This is what we figure the value. So unfortunately, unless we have another, you know, 2 or 3 years of flat market, these guys are still going to, it's just too difficult for these guys to be accurate. There's too many things that have to be taken into consideration other than size, age, style, location, view, and lot, right? Okay, so let's talk about that. What does that mean? That means that we have to take a look at the natural light of a specific comparable property. We have to take a look at the floor plan. Hey, man, what's going on? You have to take a look at the floor plan. Any updates or lack of updates in a house, okay? That's going to have a significant impact between 2 different homes. If we take a look at what we call a personalized house, like an example, you know, we went into to assist a family to market their home, and they said, hey, yeah, so what do you think of our colors? And I'm like, wow, purple is an amazing color, but it is probably not what the buyers are going to be looking for today. And so you have to understand, yeah, there's a cost to change that, but that comes into play because that comes into desirability. Desirability translates to market value. All these things come into play depending on what we're doing, right? Same with sentimental equity. Sentimental equity, you might say, what the heck is that? Okay, well, sentimental equity is the perceived value of a seller, okay? We always want to say, or always feel, because you know, we raised our children, or we did all this hard work in this house, we did these great improvements, we did all these great things in this house, and I know my house is worth more than the house down the street. Okay. No, Sentimental equity has zero value. And in fact, there was a study that was done by Ferguson Statistics that said that on average, that home sellers perceived their value of their home to be 2% and as high as 5% more than market value or appraised value, which is very interesting. Actually, they said appraised value, but that being said, it is totally common for us to say, oh, you know what, George? My house is worth more than the house down the street. We hear this all the time. And the goal is to pull that emotion out and then look at, objectively each one of these homes. And, the nice thing is people we work with, they get that and they understand that as we proceed through that, so that they have a reasonable or a clear expectation of where the market is at today. In a declining or a flat market, that can be a little bit tougher because we've had this absolutely fabulous market for a really long time, and people are still expecting this, these crazy, hey, I'm going to list my house up here, and if they don't like it, they'll make me a different offer. Bad idea, okay? Absolutely the worst idea. In fact, there's a few metrics out there that say, hey, if you're getting showings, but you're not getting offers, you're 3 to 5% too high in the market, okay? Another metric says, hey, if you're getting showings, right, or very few showings, all right, then you're probably 5 to 7% over market, all right? If you're only getting drive-bys, you're probably 10 to 12% over market. If you're not getting showings at all and you're on the market, be mindful. Those are some very clear metrics that we to a house. Okay, we want to take a look at that natural light. We want to take a look at how the floor plan is, right? Because one of the things that we talked about was style. So you can't compare a split level house, okay? That's the homes that when you walk in, you have a set of stairs to go up and a set of stairs to go down, right? You can't compare that with like a traditional two-story very effectively because they're two different styles. People either love or hate split levels, and two stories are what we consider more traditional. Just like you can't compare that against a rambler, okay, or a ranch style house, a single floor house, okay? That's different. And so you need to make sure that you are separating that. So as we go through, we talk about floor plan. What are the room sizes? What's the kitchen? Is it a great room concept? Does it flow well? Is it very partitioned, very traditional, okay? Along with the outside, okay? What's the overall condition of the home? And you need to take these into consideration as you're looking at the different homes, as you're looking at each comparable property. And then again, back to size. Size plays a big role in that. Age plays a big role because of the different appearances, or what we call street appeal, the cosmetic look of the house. Those play a role into marketability, okay? All right, so location. Location. You always hear it's the old idiom, right? All right, so with location, there's a lot of things that come into play here also. If we have a house that backs up to a busy road, well, that value is going to be a little bit less because the number of buyers, if we have 100 buyers, the number of buyers willing to consider a home backed up to a really busy road is going to be less, right? Hence, the only fix for that is price or time. And you might say, what do you mean by time? Well, okay, price is the first fix, and the only thing that it fixes if you want a higher value is time, meaning you got to own your home longer if this is the price that you want, okay? So price or time are what fixes those issues. Same thing with those high tension power lines. People say, hey, there's mixed information as far as are they good for you or are they bad for you? Not making comment on that. However, buyers look at that as a takeaway, okay? Well, again, that affects price, okay? If you have two different homes, one that's over here backs up to a nice green belt, this one over here backs up to, well, those high tension power lines that pop and futz during a rainstorm, I can tell you that this home over here next to the green belt has a higher value more than likely than the one with the high tension power lines, okay? So as you're getting the understanding, so location is important, okay? It also includes in city. Believe it or not, schools have a huge impact on the value of properties, okay? If we have a school that ranks as a 10, that has a high demand to it, it's going to have a higher value and up as high as 10% versus a home that maybe the school is only a 6, all right? So again, location is going to play a big role. Are you on a corner on a entrance into a development where it sees a lot of traffic? So you're getting traffic from this side, you're getting traffic from this side, versus one that's midway through and doesn't see as much traffic. Are you on a cul-de-sac? Are you on a cul-de-sac that when people drive in, boom, the headlights shine right on that house? Okay, that's not as desirable as the ones that are off to the side. Okay, so there's a lot of things that come into play. There's a lot of pluses and minuses that come into play. Number of garages, number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, things like this. Usable lot, especially on the larger lots that people have access to. So when we talk about comps or comparable properties, it's not a very simple process. There's a very long drawn out. We have to do our homework and really compare a lot of things. Sadly enough, the online algorithms can't look at that. They look at just some of the basics. They'll look at size. They'll take a look at bedrooms and bathrooms and age. Okay, maybe lot size. Does it have a view or is it on water? Okay, that's a given. However, they can't get into the finer details as far as condition, floor plan, natural light. Give a discount. Depending on type of where the lot physically is located on a street, things like that. All right. So if you have any questions, fire it off. Let me know. If you need help with a online home evaluation or a comprehensive home evaluation to be 99% accurate to today's market, there's no cost. Just ping us, let us know, and we'll fire that off to you. If you want one that is truly comprehensive, again, it is free to you. We just need a quick 15-minute walkthrough so that we, again, can take a look at the natural light, what amenities are there, what recent updates, what's your floor plan like, what's the lot location, things like that. These are things, again, to be comprehensive, we would need to have. So with that, if you have any questions, again, reach out to me. Give me a big wow or a big heart if you liked what you hear today. Share it with your friends. And if you need help with a tax assessment, we'll shoot you off a couple of those websites for you so you can take a look at it. In the meantime, you guys have a great day. My name is George Moorhead. Hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you next Saturday. Take care. Thanks. Bye.